Welcome to video number 3, in which you will learn how to use Project Muse and the MLA International Bibliography and the kind of differences that you'll see with those. But those are going to be your best bets for finding really good critical research on your topics. So let's start by going to the databases list. So from our homepage, library.western.edu, we're going to go down to databases and click into this database finder. It's actually not really good to go through the list of databases unless you know exactly which ones you want, because this is just an alphabetical list and doesn't tell you anything else about what they are and what they're all about. So if we click into Database Finder and go into our Subjects tab, we can go through this drop down, and I'm just going to do languages and literatures. It's going to overlap a lot with English, but just for fun. Alright, so now we're going to limit this down to the 37 databases that are relevant to us, and we're going to open in 2 different tabs the MLA International Bibliography with full text, and I would add an asterisk next to that because sometimes it's not all full text. Okay, and if we scroll down a little bit to our P's, we're going to go Project Muse. So let's talk about Project Muse first. We can do a test search here. Let's say Milton Paradise Lost. And one of the things you'll notice as we get into our search results here, 2,000 results, not bad, right? But let's have a look. So our first result is an article called Paradise Lost: A Double Standard by Milton Miller. And number 2 is an article called Paradise Lost by Spear Morgan and something called the Missouri Review. So you might start noticing that, hey, maybe we're not getting the results that we were expecting or hoping for. And that's because Project Muse has one of the least intuitive interfaces ever. This big search engine up here only searches content. So if we were to change this to the title, then we would make sure that, oh, all of these words are going to be in there. Rather than if it's just searching content, then maybe Milton is the author's name, or it appears in someone's citation, or, you know, it is some other reference to something that isn't actually what we wanted, right? So if we were to search this, we go from 2,000 results to 25. Okay? And some of these might actually be interesting to us, but it's very specific. So if someone just says Paradise Lost and assumes that you know that it's about John Milton's Paradise Lost, then those results will all be excluded in our search, right? So what I kind of like to do is try to find a word that is not going to be used as frequently or commonly in other articles. So in this case, I'm going to say epic, because epic poetry, right? So if we do Milton in the title and epic in the content, 142 results. And the first one actually looks pretty good, The Power of the Air in Milton's Epic Poetry. So if we were to click into this, we would see we start off with block quotes, and that is a pretty good indication that this is going to focus on the kind of scholarship that you need, which is going to talk about poetic technique, right? Because it's introducing a whole chunk of text to give you sort of the context of the details that they want to pull out. So here, the first sentence after this quotation, the word inclement echoes an earlier description of the tempestuous sky above, so on. So this is probably going to talk about poetic technique. And if we scroll down some more, get more block quotes. So this is a very good indication that this is going to be something that's relevant to us. Alright, so I'm going to close this out, and we can talk then about the MLA International Bibliography with full text sometimes. It is, as you'll notice, an EBSCOhost database, which basically means that it has some very finicky particulars to it. So if we were to search for Milton Epic Poetry, for example, 349 results, but you'll notice immediately that because it casts kind of this really broad net, the first 2 results are actually the same article, but there's 2 separate records for it just because of, the way in which it was inputted in the system, right? And perhaps we've had it through a few different sources, right? So we have access through a lot of different sources. So one of the things that you need to know about EBSCO is that this URL in the search bar is very temporary. Okay, so if you wanted to go back to this page of results, you would have to email your results to yourself or copy and paste this link to this search. And the reason you might want to do that is because 349 results are kind of a lot to look through. And unlike Google, which promotes the things that are, most popular, things that have been clicked the most, or people that have paid them the most money to be on the first page, EBSCOhost and most other academic databases are not really good at relevance sorting. So the results that you see on the first page might be just as good as the ones that you see on the 10th or 5th page, okay, of results. So to sort of whittle these down to ones that are going to be the most relevant to you, we can go on this left side and limit our search. So instead of pulling out book articles or dissertation abstracts or books, we might just check this box for academic journals and limit it down to 180. If we go down further, we can pick specific subjects that are going to limit our search even further. So epic conventions, for example. So if we were to click onto one of these, what we call records, epic poetry and the origins of evolutionary theory, for example, you'll often see on the left-hand side access options that we have for this. If we don't have it, then it'll say, hey, request the interlibrary loan. But the first thing you should do is watch video 4 to find out how to find full-text articles. But on the right side, you'll see a few different options to save this article. So you could email this whole record to yourself, save it locally, save it to your Google Drive, or create a permalink and email that to yourself. Or click this citation button, which will also include the link, but also, try to cite it for you. And obviously, these can be pretty hit or miss because they're just sort of forms that are filled by whatever they think the correct information is. Okay, so a lot of times, they're really bad at figuring out capitalization. So, APA, this is just not correct because too many caps. And a lot of times they'll have the incorrect page numbers because it might only pick up the first, and so on. So if you're going to use this tool, make sure that you're doing it responsibly and always check to make sure that it's correct. So one of the other things, if I go back here, that EBSCOhost does really well is that they provide subjects. So I didn't point this out, but in Project Muse, the records there don't show any subject terms or keywords. They only have, the title of the article and the author and where it was published, when it was published. Right? But subjects can be super duper helpful for changing that search, right? So if you're like, 18 results, that's not enough for me. I need to find more words to add here, right? So maybe instead of epic poetry, swap that out for epic conventions. Maybe, we're choosing English literature, 1600 to 1699 instead. If we want, specific comparisons, we'll find Wordsworth epic imagination and find that, okay? So that's a bit about the MLA International Bibliography, but one thing I do want to point out is that if we were to go back to our library homepage and go to our articles tab and search for that one article on air, so I think it was like Milton Epic Poetry Air, let's say. We do find one of the several different access points, but when we click into this, you're going to find that it doesn't have any information about how to access it. But you might recall in Project Muse that we were able to click into it and skim through the whole article. So this is an example of when our article search isn't picking up all of the resources that we have. So that's why it's important to go through the databases and search through those individually, even if it is kind of a pain. So alright, and that is video 3. I will see you in video 4 for finding full text. Alright, bye.